Morning, friends at TFA.
Chris did the intro today. Good job. I feel like we should do a little, just in case people, this is the first episode they're watching. Maybe we have new viewers.
Hopefully we do.
Maybe, maybe not. I'm Tanis.
I'm Chris.
We're married. We run a hand-dyed yarn company called Tanis Fiber Arts. And
Very
we do
happily.
a podcast. Yeah, happily. And we are going to do an episode today talking all about our signature custom line of yarns called TFA PureWash. We did a talk at our local yarn shop, Espace Tricot, on here. We're based in Montreal, so the shop is in Montreal. It's amazing.
Which makes this perfect timing because it's a podcast episode we've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we have like real strong feelings about, and it was really cool to get out there and to speak about that.
Yeah.
With people that know TFA and are, fans of the yarn already and being knitters. Had a great afternoon. Yeah. They were super, super cool. Everything was really nice.
So that was just this past weekend. And so now we've got like our PureWash. We've just been thinking about it all weekend. We talked about it. There were questions and answers. Like, we're fresh. We're ready to talk about it, to do a podcast about it. Hopefully we'll cover everything we need to cover. We've spoken about it before, or I guess more specifically, I've spoken about it first of all, in a blog post where I introduced our PureWash line when it was brand new. And then second of all, also in a Woolful podcast episode. So I'll link that in the show notes below. I did a whole interview with Ashley from Woolful focused on PureWash. That's awesome.
Both going back about a year, right?
Yeah.
And so it's something that we haven't really thought about, or I haven't personally thought about that much in a year. It's just that's the yarn that we dye.
That's our yarn now.
Most often now. And thinking about it again for this weekend and now for the podcast, like it really reaffirmed nothing's changed. Like I get just as excited about it now as I did when we thought about it and made it a reality like back over a year ago.
So it's a funny thing too, because we worked on this line of yarns for about a year before it came to fruition. So I feel like we were so invested in it and talking about it and thinking about it so much for that year. And then the big launch, and we did it. And then now it's just like just a regular yarn for us. Right. But it's not. It's really special. We worked really hard on it, and I'm really happy to be talking about it more.
So to get right into it, what is it? You tell us, since you do it very, very well. What is PureWash as opposed to superwash?
Okay, so our line of PureWash yarns is a washable yarn. So the fiber is merino. It's 100% merino, treated to make it washable, to make it non-felting. So washable isn't really that's what we're excited about, because it doesn't felt, that you can actually wash it quite easily. But really, that's what superwash means as well, is that it won't felt with agitation.
Right.
And so the difference between the superwash yarns that we used to stock predominantly as our like sort of core base of yarns versus the PureWash yarns that we now stock is the treatment process to make it washable, rather than being coated in a polymer coating in order to make it non-felting. And a polymer coating is essentially like a plastic coating that coats the fibers so that when there's agitation or heat and the fibers rub together, they don't stick together, they don't felt. That's sort of your conventional superwash.
The bulk of the ones we were using, it was a treatment process called Hercosett 125, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And that process is incredibly toxic.
Yeah. It's
high pollutant. It's really bad for the environment.
I think a ton of water is used in the process too, and then I guess that's where
I think a lot of chemicals get into the water. We should also clarify that Chris and I are not scientists.
We are not.
At all.
No.
We try.
I don't.
But we're not scientists. We don't know. So, but we do know pollution is bad.
Yeah.
And we're not happy to be associated with it. So the difference is this process, the process that the PureWash yarns are treated with, rather than coating in a polymer coating, it's the fibers are treated in a descaling process. And again, I can't get really super specific because I'm not a scientist. And I'm sure it does involve chemicals. And I remember when I was sort of introducing the PureWash line, a lot of people were talking about like, oh, less chemicals the better. And then I believe the woman is a knitter and a chemist. And she was like, chemicals aren't bad. Like everything is chemical.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
she was like, it was funny. She's like, I get so touchy when everybody's just like they use chemicals just like as a broad term. But just to say, I'm sure there's chemicals involved in the descaling process. However,
Sure.
it's a GOTS certified process. So it's totally organic, certified by the Global Organic Textile Standard, the company, the organization. There you go. That monitors the textile industry. So it's a certified process. The fiber is organic. The process is organic. It's incredibly, compared to the old process, it's way more environmentally friendly, and it's something that we can feel really good about offering. So the yarn is washable. It's non-felting, but it still retains all of its woolliness as well, which is a really awesome difference between yarns that we were using before. With the yarns that are coated in the polymer, sort of the plastic coating is the barrier between the wool and you.
Right.
And so all the things that people love about wool, about merino, I mean, they still come through. Look, they're still beautiful yarns, but
it's a beautiful yarn, but it's the wooliness of it is compromised.
Yes.
Right?
Because it's hiding behind this polymer coating. And so there are some differences physically in the yarn. And the main one, I would say, there's two differences, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to say?
The first one would be the weight, the lightness of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, not having the yarn or the fibers descaled as opposed to coated, it's a noticeable difference. There's on
the drape.
There's less of a sheen and there's less drape to it. It's more, it retains its shape and has a light and airy feel to it.
That's it, totally. Yeah. So the sheen was the second element because it doesn't have that coating. It has more of a matte finish, whereas a lot of superwash yarns have this shiny aspect, which is I don't mean
which has great appeal
thing.
In a skein.
It's shiny, it's beautiful. But so the PureWash yarns don't have that. And then the weight, so it's a big bonus for me, and I suppose more bonus for Chris, when I started knitting him garments in the PureWash, because he's so big. Chris is 6'3". I mean, so big.
It's
a reasonable size, but he's a man. He's 6'3". He's got a proportionately very long arms.
Yeah.
He has like 7-foot wingspan. So it's a lot of knitted fabric. And so when I would knit him a sweater in a superwash yarn, it really would stretch. Like the weight of it would just come down. So you'd have to, it made it quite frustrating.
Even if you were very conscientious about lying them flat to dry, you'd still get extra length on sleeves. You know, I would end up rolling at least once after the first wash. And yeah, things would just stretch out. And obviously, any kind of garment or project you do, a blanket, a sweater, the larger it is, the more you're going to notice that, right? Like for a kid's sweater, a superwash sweater, you're not going to notice the difference.
Well, yeah, and they're because they're not as heavy. And even my sweaters, because I'm about half the size of you, it just doesn't have the added weight to really make it
sag. Drape.
Sag, I guess sag. Drape would be a positive
way
to put
it,
and
sag. Glamorous way of saying.
Sag is right. But so because sometimes you can manipulate it to use the drape to your advantage, right? If you're doing a shawl, or if you're doing something that you wanted that. But anyhow, so just to say, I suppose I want to put out my disclaimer also that we stocked our superwash yarns, so yarns like our green label and our yellow label, that were 100% Hercosett 125 superwash for about 8 years. We're just about out of stock I thought we were out of stock of everything, and then we found a box in the garage. So we're almost out of stock of absolutely everything we've discontinued that line and replaced it with our PureWash Worsted and DK. And just to say, we loved those yarns for years. This isn't like
makes for amazing sock yarn. They all take the dyes beautifully.
Yeah. And it's just that I don't like talking about the two bases and saying that one is good and one is bad. It's just environmentally.
No, so let's.
One is good and one is bad.
So we did it for years without even thinking about it really, mm-hmm. And then it just sort of crept in. 10 was, we were making an effort for cleaning products and the food we buy to consider environmental impact and
mm-hmm.
the health of our family and the health of the planet, and it was the elephant in the room was that what we put out into the world, we weren't giving the same consideration. So when we started to and looked at, that's discovering how the superwash yarn was even treated came after, right? It
Well,
wasn't
I
before
feel
we
like,
started working with it. It was, years into TFA that we
yeah.
started looking at it.
So we started, I started TFA in 2008, so just about 10 years ago now. And at the time, I sourced my bases just how anybody else who was just starting in the business would source. I went on Google and I was like, yarn for hand dyeing.
Right.
And I found some manufacturers who sold yarn specifically to hand dyers. And I, chose from the 10, 12, the whatever bases that they had available. I chose the bases that I wanted, bought those, dyed those, knit with them, loved them, sold them. And for so long, I was only focused on the colors.
Yeah.
I thought that that's what made us special.
Yeah.
And because I also thought that was our only option. Like I didn't think of us as a yarn manufacturer. I thought of us as a color maker.
So in retrospect, it probably was our only option, because you don't go into it, two people in an apartment looking to buy one box of yarn. You don't call a manufacturer and start making very specific requests for small amounts of yarn.
Right. Well, they wouldn't do it.
Right.
And I wouldn't have had, I don't think I didn't know enough at the time. I wouldn't have known what exactly I wanted, probably. I think that this was a great way, the way that we did it, to get a foot in the door, to get used to doing it, to learn about dyeing and to learn about colors. And then sort of 8 years into it, I credit the Woolful podcast, Ashley over at Woolful, for making me, she had talked a lot about superwash yarns and sort of how she was removing superwash yarns from her staff. Well, not removing. She was no longer buying superwash yarns, and the ethical reasons why and the environmental reasons why. And at first, when I think it must have been a blog post of hers that I read, and I'm like sitting there on my computer, a little bit stunned, like what? We only carry superwash yarns.
Right.
Like what's the problem here? Like what? And I was super defensive. I thought that the superwash process, I'm like, sure, it makes it not as woolly. It takes the wool away the wool properties, but it just makes it into something different, and that's not bad. And that in itself is not bad. Like, just, not everything has to be wool to be good. But it was the environmental implications that you can't like.
That bears mentioning as a little aside. To say that PureWash is organic might conjure in people's minds an idea of a wool completely different from the PureWash wool, but that was, I think, part of the reason why it took us a year to get to the point where we were comfortable introducing it, is that it feels amazing.
Yeah.
It's
incredibly soft. Well, it's merino. Merino is so soft.
Right.
And I think that people often, I think knitters know this. Anybody who knits knows how great merino is and how soft it is, and then they wouldn't question that. But non-knitters sometimes confuse wool with
it retains
with
it retains woolly properties, but is not something that's going to bother a kid.
No,
or anybody
I
sensitive
wouldn't think so.
to it.
Yeah, it's totally appropriate for babies, and
they feel beautiful.
Yeah, they're really, really soft and bouncy, really, really nice. But basically, Chris and I was sitting. I vaguely remember the situation. I'm on my laptop reading blogs at night, and then I was like, okay, so what's the deal with this Hercosett 125? Like, maybe I need to know a bit more about the product that we're selling here. And so I start Googling it and reading articles about it, and I look at Chris and I'm like, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, this is a big deal because, as Chris said, like in our life, in our personal life, in our home life, I think we're very environmentally conscious. We try, obviously, anyhow, it's important to us. Okay, I don't know how good we are at it, but it's important to us.
Yeah.
And then our business, the one area where I felt like we should be the most in control. This is what we're putting out there. And this is our life. Like, this isn't just a casual thing that we're doing.
Right. It's not to sound heavy-handed, but in conversations that Tan and I have, it often comes up as like, this is our legacy. This is what we're doing with the productive working years of our life. And I think, like, above everything else, that, what we do, it's a very special thing to me that we make something that people can get behind, can associate us with, and make something beautiful for themselves or for, a newborn baby in their family or a loved one. And, that they'll have positive associations and memories with this thing that we helped create.
Yeah.
And I think that's,
that in and of itself, is heirloom knitting.
Right. So in and of itself, that we have stuff that, you're grandma knit that gave to your mom or aunts that came to us for our kids, and that's a really beautiful thing, and to be a part of that is such an honor, which makes it all the more important to really carefully consider all the steps of it.
Yeah.
What happens to the yarn before it gets to us?
Right. We were only for years concerned or considering what we did to the yarn,
right.
and not what happened to it before it came to us. Exactly, like you said. So when that sort of became something, when our eyes were opened, basically that's it. It was just like I read a bunch of stuff, my eyes were opened, and I could not close them. Right? You can't ignore it. We sort of something had to be done.
We hit, I wouldn't call it a crisis, but we were.
I would say I had a bit of
a mini crisis, yeah, a little bit of an existential one, where we were like, can we continue to do this? If we're not comfortable with the process that the yarn undergoes before we get it, are we comfortable selling it and using it? And
I feel like the answer was nope.
It was quickly becoming no for both of us. Yeah. So we started exploring options, and that it was a process. It wasn't just call someone up.
No. So this is the thing. You can't buy like superwash yarns for hand dyers, available to hand dyers at these places where you go online and you Google yarns for hand dyeing, the things that are available to you. Yeah, there wasn't an organic washable option. There's organic options, but they're not. They felt, and it became clear to me as well. Like through all this soul searching, this period we were going through, I've always made decisions for the business in terms of colors and yarns and bases and stuff that we use based on my preferences as a knitter. Sounds super selfish to put it that way. However, I feel like I'm a knitter. I buy yarn online. I'm my own best customer. I know, what I like. Hopefully other people will like what I like. Right. And that is, there's other people like me out there. I can't try to do
I don't think it sounds selfish. I think that's like probably in a nutshell the key to our success, right?
Right, maybe. But I am such a knitter. I'm so into it.
Which is why we have the PureWash now. It's because you do what you believe in and love and hope that it resonates with an audience, and it does.
Awesome.
Right? So if we stay true to that, then
it's been working out well.
Right.
That approach, my selfish approach. I make yarn that I want to knit with. So, and I knit for people. I knit for my kids. I knit for my friends with kids. I knit for my friends who don't have kids. But basically, when we were going through this process, like literally the soul searching process of what kind of yarn do we want to be able to offer? Because we were sort of like, maybe we start from scratch. If we're not comfortable with the Hercosett 125 process and the superwash yarns, and that's all that's available to us in terms of washable wool, maybe we do something completely different. Like maybe we're contacting local farmers in our area, and we're trying to, we're buying fleece that way, and we're doing small batches, and maybe we completely change the website and we don't have this many colors, and they're not always available because when you're working with local farmers, where in our area, I can't get the they don't have a never-ending supply of fleece the way that the manufacturers that I currently was dealing with are able to, it's just everything. I thought maybe everything is just going to be different. Maybe we just have to totally start from scratch. But one of the things that became obvious was that if it didn't have our colors, then it wasn't Tanis Fiber Arts. No. It wasn't us.
No, we'd have to change the name, and we would quite possibly still be a yarn business, but not the business we started and worked on and built up.
I feel like color is where our heart is.
Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in fiber. I'm interested in different breeds of sheep. I do have an interest in that. It's not my passion.
Yeah.
I spin, but I don't spin different types of fiber every week just because I'm so curious about how it's going to behave. If that was an interest of mine, I think it would have come out. And it just hasn't really come out. What has come out is my love of color.
Right.
And so that's what we felt like that was really important, that we had to be able to maintain that. And then I also felt that it was important that I didn't want to create a product that was so precious that it couldn't be washed or easily, that I could only knit for knitters, that I couldn't knit for my friends and family.
Yeah, superwash is something you can feel comfortable giving to people that don't knit but will appreciate hand knits for kids or themselves. and it really narrows the scope if you're going to be doing a yarn that's only really understood by a small core group of knitters, you know, because you can't give it to somebody who doesn't have the not the means, but the time and inclination to take care of it in the way you might need to. So there's
a place for that, and I do knit with that, but I don't knit with that for gifts for my friends' babies.
Right.
And I want to be able to knit gifts for my friends' babies. It's something that's important to me. So it became clear that it needed to be washable and it needed to be able to produce bright colors. So basically, those were kind of
which we achieved.
Yeah,
and
then, so would you say that those were like the two main things?
Yeah, and this was a really interesting part of our talk at Espace Tricot this weekend. Was a lot of people were very curious to know, I guess, your recommended washing process for the PureWash.
Yeah.
And maybe kind of superwash yarns and more delicate yarns in general. So why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So one of my, something that I feel really passionate about is laundering knits. That's not what I meant to say at all. But I actually feel, because I get questions about this all the time, and I think that it's a really big misconception. Not only, well, specifically in hand knitting, I think people see the word washable or they see the word superwash and they confuse that with indestructible.
Right.
And I made the point in our talk at Espace Tricot, and I could see everybody around the room, they're all knitters, they all experience this, they all know, they're all nodding. If I wash my kids' pajamas, like their cotton PJs, in a hot wash, throw it in the dryer, they're brand new, they come out, they look like they've been through the washer and dryer.
Yeah.
Like even, cotton fabrics, even polyester fabrics show wear over time if you're washing and drying them and treating them a bit harsher. Superwash wool, PureWash wool, washable wool is exactly the same. And so even if it says superwash on it, what that means is that it will not felt. It will not come out like a shrunken piece of cardboard if you've put your sweater in the washer and dryer. It will show wear, just like any other textile that you put through the washer and dryer.
Yeah, all clothes. That's right.
So that's basically the thing. So when I wash, I'm going to do a big elaborate blog post on this with like all the details of how I wash the kids' clothes, because I do wash our clothes as well. However, less frequently, because we're a bit more responsible with our clothing and our food when we are wearing hand knits.
You and me, not the boys so much.
Right.
We just take the knits off the boys for eating.
So when the kids are home and they're wearing a sweater, when Micah, who's 2.5, if I'm going to give him a plate of spaghetti, I will take off his sweater before I give it to him. But I send him to daycare in hand knits.
Right.
And at daycare, they don't have the time to go around and like preciously take off all the kids' sweaters.
He's in one today.
Yeah. And he probably has yogurt in his snack, does he?
Godspeed sweater. He does have yogurt, yeah.
So he will come home, likely with yogurt all down the front of his sweater, so I'll have to wash that sweater. So basically, just to say, the kids wear them all the time, and I wash them all the time, and this is how I do it. I will run around the house, collect all the hand knits that need to be washed, be they hats, mitts, socks, sweaters. I will throw them in the washing machine on a delicate cycle, cold wash, with just a regular, we use an organic, natural, unscented detergent. Whatever we have, whatever's on sale at the grocery store that week or whatever. So not a specific wool wash necessarily, not a specific detergent, just something gentle. And I'll put it through a cold, gentle cycle. I let it go through the spin, through the whole cycle. And then I lay it flat to dry. I always lay everything flat to dry. I like to reshape them. I don't mind the process. I have the luxury of having my office. So I have all the space to put it out.
Which we can close off from the kids. And
right. If you lived in an apartment and I'm saying like, just lie them all over your dining room.
Right.
I understand that is a bit of a
Not
luxury
easy.
that we have. We have a room that we can shut. But I put everything in here on towels on the floor. I don't have special sort of like air circulation things. And then I just leave it there for the night. And then in the morning when I come in, if they're still a bit damp, I'll put them on they're usually not, because we have dehumidifiers running in the office. You probably wouldn't need dehumidifiers if you didn't have an office full of soaking wet yarn. While you try to dry your sweater, so that's just not really probably relevant. But I'll put a fan on. We have a ceiling fan, and then I'll put another little fan, kind of just keep the air circulating. But it's really I come in the morning, they're dry. It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
And then the last crucial step, oh, I should have brought it. My gleaner.
I think it's.
Oh, there's one right here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I could not live without my gleaner. So here's the gleaner. We sell this on the website in this beautiful baby blue shade. Oh, opening a brand new one. And
you could hold it up in the packaging. Oh, too late.
No.
Too late.
No. So it's a gleaner. It looks like this. And now I haven't put on yet. It comes with a little, I'm not going to open this to show. But there's actually 4. There's this, and then 3 other little heads, interchangeable heads, depending on sort of the level of gleaning that you need to do. Different, what would you call that? Different hardnesses or like sandpaper, different grits. Anyways, so I take my sweaters, they're dry, and I go, it's like a couple minutes.
I'm okay in grits. It sounds good.
It's different grits of cleaner. And they're good as new. It just takes all the pills off. It defusses them because they do come out, even though they haven't gone in the washer, they come out of or in the dryer, I should say. They come out of the wash looking like they've been washed.
Well, you can hand wash it and lay it flat. It's still going to pill a bit over time. You know, I get it on sleeves, elbows, and forearms and stuff like that. And the cleaner takes care of it so quickly. Go over it with
the gleaner.
It's like
and
brand
it looks
new.
Brand new.
Yeah, super good.
If you knit or if you
own knits.
Knitted items, then you have to be hand knit. I tell my friends because
sure, like a
store-bought sweater.
Yeah,
glean it. So I love my gleaner, and then that's my last step in my washing, and then that's it. Then they're done. And so, and I'll usually do it sort of in the evening, lay them flat, they dry overnight. Like I feel like people think that laying flat is such a big deal. It's not a big deal.
I can't attest to it. I don't do it.
You've never done it. Because I like to do it. It really doesn't, it's not something that I find difficult or that bothers me.
I've never blocked anything I've made either. Tan does it for me.
Because also I like to do that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, trust me that you could. It's not hard. You've done it. You've laid something out and made it flat.
Even
that's
I
all
could
you
do
have
it.
to do.
Even I could do it.
You. So, and that's my advice. Now, so again, if you did put something in the dryer, for example, I put socks in the dryer all the time because I'm just not that precious about them. Mittens, I will, because the kids, they literally like dip their mittens in puddles.
Yeah.
Like they need to be washed kind of more regularly. So I'll throw those in the dryer. And then again, I'll just glean them when they're done, and they will show wear quicker than if I never put them in the dryer, but they're not destroyed.
I have a super good example of that though. So this is PureWash, and probably one of the oldest examples we have of it in the house. It's a little dragon hat that's Rowan's, and he absolutely loves it to the point where it's barely fall weather here, and it's out because he had it out. Like
balaclava weather.
He was trying to wear it to his grandparents' house on the weekend. It's in amazing shape, and this has been machine washed like a lot. It's a hat that kids wear.
Well, it's a hat that he wears with like a
built-in
neck warmer. Imagine.
He's probably eaten a few snacks with that thing on. So yeah, it gets washed all the time.
Runny nose.
And that's like I wouldn't even.
It looks brand
I wouldn't
new.
attest that
fantastic.
it hasn't been in the dryer once or twice.
It's probably been fine.
Been cleaned and is looking fantastic.
Yeah.
So just to say, it's not super precious. You can wash it.
Right.
You just got to take care of it.
It's just for the longevity because, well, you touched on before, so much of what we knit is it's so special and it becomes an heirloom. You want to take care of it. And so I think that if you throw a cashmere sweater or a non-washable wool sweater in the washer and dryer, you will have destroyed your sweater. Yeah. Like you won't be able to wear it.
Full disclosure here. I did that. That's from experience. Yeah. Years ago, we were coming back to our house one evening in Tan. I was turning the car off and she was at the front doorstep with Stella, and
we got skunked.
They got point blank skunked.
Point blank. Like the skunk was right there. It was
Stella,
like in
Stella
the bushes
got it on the side of the
door.
head, and then it was just like this peripheral spray all over Tan. And,
so we got
and her beautiful
skunked.
Purple cashmere sweater
that I had knit,
which I grabbed.
So we like
Stella was wearing a sweater too.
Well, this is Stella was wearing a sweater. That's so funny. And that she still wears.
Hers was superwash. It survived it, but I threw them in a hot wash right away because they smelled.
Yeah, because we'd been skunked. So we just like ripped off Stella's sweater, ripped off my clothes. I ran up to the shower.
I didn't even think. I threw everything in the dryer. We were just kind of like in.
I didn't think about it either. We were in
emergency mode. And when it came out, Stella's sweater more or less survived, and Tan's was like a felted
It was like
cardboard
sad,
mess. It was
sad
like it was
little,
newborn
it was
size,
so
but
small.
nothing
Yeah.
could wear it because it was now
rock
2-dimensional and rock
My
hard.
mom used it in a quilting,
Did she?
like
Oh,
a
good.
craft project,
Good.
like a quilt, an art quilt.
Man, I felt terrible.
Wow. There was a skunk. Like there was nothing we could do. We were in a skunk days.
Stella's little head smelled like burnt matches for like 6 months.
Stella's been skunked like 3 times.
Yeah, she's not very clever. She doesn't learn from her mistakes.
But she has short hair and it's not
as bad as a huge dog.
No, it's not a major issue. But she does she would retain a faint whiff for a long time.
Yeah.
For months.
Yeah.
And luckily, anyhow, so that is what non-washable wool does in the dryer. PureWash will not do that in the dryer.
But avoid the dryer. That's a TFA recommendation.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. Basically, you can wash it without risk of destroying it, but or dry it, I should say. But I still don't recommend it. If you love and cherish your hand knits and you want them to last and look great forever, lay flat to dry. That's all there is to it.
So we got some questions at the end of your little talk.
I didn't even talk about how we got PureWash.
All right.
This is a long episode, guys. It's a big deal. We worked on it for a long time.
It is a big deal, yeah.
So this is it. So once we narrowed down on what we wanted to do, we wanted to be able to offer a washable product. We wanted it to be bright colors. We wanted it to be soft, that you can knit it for kids, something that everybody could wear, everybody would love. And we still wanted to feel like us, like the business that we had been building for the past 8 years. So I contacted, I think it just took that long to figure out what we wanted. And then I have a manufacturer that I work with here in Montreal who is incredibly cool to work with. He says, whatever you want, let me know. We'll see if we can do it. So I was like, this is what I want. Can we do it? And I had been researching. I'd found another company that did this descaling process. I found the company that was going to do the fleece. And then I contacted my mill, the manufacturer who could hopefully purchase the fleece from this company, make it from this organic washable wool company.
It was him that dealt with the company that does the process.
Right.
Which is much more impactful, I think, calling someone who is like an industry person
that's what
on
he
their
does.
level,
yeah, he buys
as opposed
fleece.
to 2 people calling and being like, have you ever heard of Tanis Fiber Arts, calling from their garage office, right? So
he dealt with, so I sort of made the link. It was like, this is a mill that can make yarn for me, and this is a company that can make the fleece for me. Can we work together, make yarns for me? Anyways, and it worked out. So the other super fun thing about the PureWash is that, so we got samples made. First of all, I guess I should say, we dyed them.
There's a lot of back and forth there.
And then a lot of back and forth about the exact specifications of the twist, the way the yarn was spun, exactly how I wanted it, which is super cool because it's the first time that I've ever gotten to do that, where I knew I wanted a fingering, a DK, a worsted, and a chunky. Yeah. And now
everything was considered as a raw yarn. It was considered while I was dyeing how it would take the colors, and then we would both look at the twist, swatch something up.
Yeah, see if we like the way it knit.
And it wasn't. We did not jump on the first.
No, there were a few back and forth. Yeah, but then now we've got this line of yarns that we're so incredibly proud of. That is so unique to us. Because we designed it. Yeah, and that. Proud, I guess, is really the thing we can feel so good about. I feel good about putting it out there. I feel good about what we're selling. I love it because I designed it for myself. And and it's just something that it's a step that I hadn't realized we were going to take. It's not something that I didn't think that making custom bases was something that was missing in my life, but turns out it was, because it's incredibly rewarding. I feel so good about it. And so that's the PureWash story. Yeah. And so I've always, and I think I can't really understate, I guess I probably would have heard about it one way or another, but Ashley at Woolful really started me in this direction.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember going out to work and
damn, Ashley,
listening to her podcast in here. And this was before you went on. And I could hear the the concepts and the ideas creeping in, and we started to consider it too, and I'm thankful that we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the questions, Chris, for you was is it very different dyeing the PureWash yarns than it was from dyeing the superwash yarns we were using before?
It is. It's really different. So that's one thing you can't take away from PureWash yarn is from superwash is they take dye beautifully.
Yeah.
And whatever you can conceive of and put on a skein, if you're doing it right, you can have it come out like that. You know, like you can do
really crisp color. It really absorbs the dye quickly and easily.
You can get your multis, you can get an entire spectrum of colors and have them basically not overlap or whatever. And there's less of that with something like PureWash. But we managed to, through trial and error, work it out. I switched my methods a little bit in terms of heat, in terms of, amount of dyes used, not so much. That's basically remained the same. But just technique, refinement, to get it to a place where we felt like we would have rather discontinued some colorways than, do an unfaithful reproduction of what we were doing on Superwash, or a bad version. And we didn't have to. We managed to get everything through a lot of trial and error to come out the way we wanted it to come out. And the inherent mattness to it, the slight less sheen that there is when side by side compared to a superwash, ended up being a real advantage, because anything you would feel it loses in pizzazz hanging on a hook or a shelf, it makes up for in a smoothly blended quality in knitted projects.
And knittability, yeah.
Right. That's another thing for me. That's in the top 5 important qualities that we need to strive for in with TFA yarns. Sure, it's got to look beautiful in a skein, but most importantly, it's got to be something that makes a beautiful finished item.
Yeah, so we sort of have a garment test. If we don't really do any colorways that you wouldn't knit a sweater in. You don't have to knit a sweater for you in it, because I know we do a lot of colorways that you would not wear an entire sweater in Iris. Just because it's not your preference. No, but I'm considering one at Hummingbird, so I'm broadening my horizons. But actually, let's grab a skein of Iris right here. So this is Iris, just to show.
I love
variegated,
Iris.
It's multicolored. I just mean you would be wearing an Iris vest anytime soon. That's not the test. It's not will Chris wear the sweater. It's could somebody wear a sweater in this, and would we look at that and be like, yeah, we dyed that? Or would we be like, oh boy, that's one heck of a sweater?
And what's kind of funny is another thing
we're proud of this colorway. I've seen sweaters and stuff. I have a sweater in this. I should have.
Tanis is super good at alternating skeins when she knits to avoid pooling and stuff. I'm not. I rather just go straight through. If I'm doing a hat for myself, I'll deal with any kind of pooling, but that factors into how I dye. You kind of intrinsically know that you got to divide the color up in a way that it'll not be a disaster if you're knitting the hackish amateur way that I do. So
anybody who doesn't
cut corners, don't worry, I got your back.
So we anyhow, so the colors is a cool thing. Yeah, and you had to make tweaks, but you were able to make it work.
That's the overall happy ending of it is it's a yarn that we're over the moon happy with, and we didn't have to compromise the TFA color that we're kind of known for.
Yeah, so it took a long time to make it happen, but
best of both worlds, and we couldn't be more proud.
So I have just a few little add-ons that I want to mention. So we carry PureWash fingering, DK, worsted, and chunky. In our shop, we also still have, as part of our collection, a bunch of superwash yarns. Our purple label cashmere sock yarn. The merino content in that is not PureWash. Our blue label sock yarn, the merino content is 80% merino, 20% nylon, and the merino is a superwash. It's not our PureWash. And the reason for that is basically just that we had to start somewhere. We started with 100% merino, the products that we could put out there that were 100% organic. There's still a lot more research I have to do. I'm not certain that I can get organic cashmere and nylon to make an organic version of our purple label cashmere sock yarn. Same with silk. I'm not sure. I know that there's ethical questions regarding silk as well. And so any of our products that have other fibers involved in them, I sort of wanted to I want to make sure that we have all the research done before we start developing lines of yarn where people are like, okay, cool that it has like 70% organic PureWash, but then their other 30% of its yarn is still like super toxic. So we just kind of left those alone for now.
Yeah.
Baby steps, do one thing at a time. We're certainly, our business is now, probably, I mean, it's incredibly majority PureWash because we don't have all of those yarns permanently available at all times. We sometimes do them in Etsy updates or feature them for certain things. But
the first step was to get the workhorse yarns.
Yeah, we just needed to get
done,
the ball rolling. And now that we've done it and that we can, we've put it out there, it's been well received. I wasn't, to be honest, very nervous about how it was going to be received. And the reason for that is because I didn't think that anybody who doesn't want a more ethical product.
Right.
I basically thought, well, we've got our colors. It's still these beautiful weights of yarn. It's just more environmentally friendly and more ethical. Like, what's not to love?
Right from the weights.
And I don't think I ever had, nobody has sent me an email and been like, oh, really bummed. Really bummed that this product
nice colors. Wish it was less environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
No
so
you may not be concerned with it, but it's not a negative for anyone.
That's right.
Right.
Some people are. It's probably they're not looking for it, but they're also if they find it accidentally, then they're happy.
Sure.
Anyhow, so that's all good stuff that we're super pumped about. I also wanted to mention that we do carry other bases that aren't like we're not perfect. I just don't want to make it
yet
seem like we're working on it. And then I wanted to mention because now I've gone through this whole talk wearing this stunning shawl, and I haven't mentioned what it is.
I knit it for Tanis. No, I didn't.
No, you did not. I should have double checked the name.
Oh no, you're gonna have to put it in post.
Yeah. I'm gonna put a little sign of what it is. I believe it's called Take It All. I knit it last year, and I'm just having a full blank.
Who's the designer?
She's a great designer.
Boom.
Maliha. Maliha Designs. I think that's her name on Instagram.
I promise Tanis will put
Lisa
it in
Haynes.
along.
That's her name.
Okay.
Lisa. Yeah, so it's all going to be there. You guys are probably reading it right now. But it's gorgeous. It's PureWash. It was the first shawl that I knit in our PureWash fingering yarn. And I'm crazy about PureWash fingering in a shawl. It's so light and airy. It's just so fantastic. So the first of many, I'm sure.
Gets a lot of use, that one. It is beautiful.
Also, features the highlighter colorway that I say nobody likes, but I like. There you go.
Specific. It's a limited use one, but yeah.
But we like it.
Yeah.
And that's it, guys. So thanks for bearing with us. This is probably one of our longer episodes because I feel like we had a lot to say about PureWash. And hopefully we've explained the PureWash journey and told you what it's about and why it was important to us and what we've gone ahead and done.
Yeah. I think it was good timing that it happened when it did happen. And yeah, we're going to continue to work on
I've got some ideas. I've got some more ideas.
Into the business.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So thanks very much for tuning in this week. And see you next time.
See you next time, guys. High five.